Hey everyone, welcome back. Season 2, Episode 1, ABC Hockey Show. Glad to have everyone here. Glad to have everyone with us. Remember, if you want to have any comments, you want to mention anything, you want anything for us to discuss, abchockeyshow@gmail.com. Very excited to be back for the 2017-2018 season, a very promising season for many teams. Hopefully, one of those teams being the Pittsburgh Penguins. Would love to see a three-peat. But let's get in, before we even get ahead of ourselves to the Stanley Cup, which is obviously the end of the season. Let's talk about some items that occurred during the offseason and the preseason. So, Ben, do you want to start with the Rangers, some of the changes that we have to their lineup, to their team? You want to go through some of just the offseason acquisitions and losses and whatnot?
Yeah, let's start with the Rangers because arguably the Rangers had much more of a change than the Penguins had to have over the offseason. Although the Penguins had major moves, based on the expansion especially. But the Rangers really had a big change to make. They were very disappointing that round 2 of the playoffs. I think the Ottawa Senators lost. It still bothers me. I hope it still bothers them. And they had to make some moves. Dan Girardi is the first that comes to mind. They bought out the remaining, I believe it was 3 years of his contract. He's now in Tampa for some, minuscule dollars, but they got rid of him. They got rid of Stepan. They got rid of their backup goalie, Antti Ranta. I think what really happened was their depth has been challenged. Their number one center was Derek Stepan, which in and of itself was a problem, right? They got rid of him, made a necessary trade based on salary cap and whatever else, and moved him on to what I call Rangers West.
West.
But they made a big move in terms of getting rid of. They moved up Zibanejad to the number 1, Hayes to the number 2. They signed a bunch of depth players. I mean, they signed. They obviously got D'Angelo in that trade from Stepan as right now 6th defenseman, maybe 7th defenseman. They got Shattenkirk as the major free agent signing, which I think was a huge signing for them. They got the best, arguably the best, not the best free agent, definitely free agent defenseman on the market. They signed him to not necessarily a cap friendly in terms of annual salary, but his overall cap hit for 4 years is not bad. And they rearranged their top 4. All 4 lines got rearranged. And Desjardins came in from Montreal. They're gonna have I think he has his name Heidel as their 4th line center this year. Is a 18-year-old, 19-year-old rookie. They really made some big changes in their whole entire depth. If they don't get good seasons from Zibanejad and Hayes, their top 2 centers, they're going nowhere.
Right.
And that's going to be where their season rests. You don't have the veteran leadership of Stepan and Girardi, which whatever their deficiencies were or were not, they were guys who went to the Stanley Cup Finals, Stanley Cup playoffs year after year, and you lose a lot of leadership and veteran knowledge and know-how with those guys. So a lot of changes in their depth. As much as their top 2 lines maybe have just changed players, their bottom 2 lines have made a whole turnover, and their whole depth of their entire team has been changed.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the Shattenkirk signing was a must for them on a number of reasons. I think the most important one is their power play, which year after year seemed to be, I don't want to say inept, but just disappointing is probably the better way to put it. He definitely adds some firepower there, defenseman who can shoot. I was not as impressed with his defense on Washington from like a pure defenseman. However, the Rangers have plenty of defensemen who can play defense. He's like Shattenkirk, I don't believe is going to be brought in to shut down that number 1 forward. I think he's more of there to generate offense from a team that at times, especially, had trouble scoring. So I do like the signing. I found it funny how he said he gave a hometown discount in terms of the salary. He's making like some ridiculous number, but good for him. Why not get paid? But I think that your point to the fact that while it may not be cap friendly, it's a short-term relatively deal. He's 28 years old. It'll take him through till he's 32, I think. It's a 4-year deal, if I'm not mistaken.
4-year deal. I think it's 6.5 per year.
So, like, he's going to be 32 as opposed to, like, when he's giving him a deal till he's 36. I think 32 will still be either the up or the, that plateau of his career, maybe 1 year on the slight decline. But I think for the most part, you're still getting him in his prime. So from a Ranger perspective, I think you have to be really, really happy with that signing. I do think similar to the Penguins, and we'll get there. But I do think the Rangers are going to have an issue with depth. I think there's a lot of okay players, and I don't think that there's that many players who are going to be able to, like you said, lead. I do think that is going to be a potential issue for him. I think Nash, and I hate to say this because and most Ranger fans will probably disagree. I think he's on the downswing of his career.
Absolutely.
I even thought last year he was still strong on the puck, but I didn't see the same dynamic explosion from him play after play. There were times that he flashed that, don't get me wrong, a dynamic steal at the blue line, whatever it is, but I think for the most part, he became more of a possession-type player as opposed to like a dynamic scorer, which is okay when you have the pieces around him. I'm just concerned about, the pieces around him.
What I will say about Nash is he's on the downside of his career. He is also, I think, in a positive way, become the most well-rounded player on the team. So as a guy who's a veteran who maybe knows he's lost a step, maybe scoring-wise or maybe in his overall step, he's their best two-way player. I think without Stepan, he's definitely their best two-way player.
Yeah, and he's also got a really high hockey IQ, and that can for a lot of instances bridge the gap between I've lost a step from what I used to have and where I am right now. A lot of times just a really good high hockey IQ can help, just being in the right place at the right time, seeing the ice the way he does, so on and so forth. So that definitely, and that's something that doesn't go away. So that he has as a benefit for him as he ages.
Yeah, I think, it's interesting. What the Rangers probably need is for him to be their best two-way player and a guy like Chris Kreider to be their best scorer.
Right.
Which when Nash was brought in, he was to be their scorer.
Right. Correct.
And he's not that guy anymore. You need Kreider to be their top goal scorer, and need Zuccarello to be their top point getter, or maybe Zibanejad to be their top point getter. But that's what you need is those guys to I don't know if it's settle into a role or to grab a role. Right. In a way that they had not done yet because they were able to mix and match with a team that was very deep.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense.
I want to take a quick turn. You had the major move of getting your goalie drafted.
Yeah. One would argue, so the Penguins offseason started with a bang, almost forcing Vegas to take Fleury.
Were you shocked they took him right away?
Well, we made it pretty. We also gave him a draft pick to take him. Right. I think we were just afraid that they'd take someone else, someone who's not going to be part of our future. While Fleury was amazing, yeah, he's got 3 cups. You could argue he won 1.5 of them, but while he was a huge part of what the Penguins were, he was not going to be who the Penguins are going forward. And that was very clear. We couldn't afford to lose Murray, even though I still think that had we traded for Niemi, we could have made him available. And then we might have, but neither here nor there. Murray would not have been available, from my understanding. He was still a rookie within the first 2 years. Same reason that Sheary and Getzel weren't available. But assuming that we had a goalie that was eligible for the draft, we would have lost that guy. But neither here nor there. I'm happy for Fleury. He's got a starting position. He was the best teammate anyone could have asked for, and he dealt with it in a classy way. Has always been a class act, and he's always been fun to watch, even though he's been infuriating at sometimes. I'm sad to see him go, but it was what's best for him and really what was best for the team going forward. So I really can't really be that frustrated. When we look at some other departures, because I think that's a big theme of the year, I think that there is a trend in 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And then one of them does not fit the trend. Let's go with the first trend, the trend that the other 4 fit. So there's Marc-Andre Fleury. We replaced him with Antti Niemi, who will be fine. He'll basically be that same, I don't know, he'll play 25 games, maybe 30 games. Murray's going to play 50 or whatever it is. They'll probably split the load. I don't expect, outside of a fluke injury, to see Niemi in the playoffs. And realistically, if Niemi's in the playoffs, we're not going to go too far. So that I don't really see. The difference between Fleury and Niemi in the regular season, maybe 4 wins, honestly. So I probably even less. So I'm not so concerned about that. We lost Trevor Daley. He was already on my shit list. I really was not a huge fan of Daley. Come the playoffs, he's slow. He caught himself in bad positions. He was always out of place. I'm not sad to see him go, and he's old, which is the theme that we see from the guys who left. Matt Cullen, again, an old guy. I know why he went to Minnesota. He wants one last season in his hometown. Honestly, he's old. He was good on faceoffs, but he was losing a touch. He was not as effective on the penalty kill, and he really just wasn't as effective. Again, he could win some faceoffs, but I think that's something that anyone else could really fill that role. Chris Kunitz, had we recorded this episode a year ago today, I would have said it's about time. He had a fabulous run in the playoffs. The stats may not say that, but the two-way play the defense he played while a forward, the positioning he did, the passes, the scoring to some extent, and then just his work on the penalty kill, I thought he had redeemed himself sixfold. From my perspective, he was too old to give another contract. I think he's almost 38 or something like that.
Yeah.
But we will miss. He was also a very physical player. We did bring in Ryan Reeves, who we'll touch on later. So I think from a hits and a physical perspective, we'll be all right. But it's kind of bittersweet. Again, in starting with the playoffs and towards the end of last season, he had started to find a warm place in my heart. So it is kind of sad to see.
Are you keeping the jersey?
Oh, the jersey's got to be kept. I mean, every time we needed a big win, that jersey was on. It was on for the overtime winner against the Caps. It was just that jersey is going to go down in the history of jersey. In fact, that jersey has better luck than my Crosby jersey, which is crazy. But of course, Kunitz looks better than Crosby. Of course, like freaking stat collector. But anyway, I am sad to see that guy go.
Looks good next to Crosby. He's getting another assist from the Crosby jersey.
Right, exactly right. It probably all the good stuff rubbed off onto that jersey, and now it's on his jersey. The last departure, which is not an old guy, was Nick Bonino. Really, it sucked to see him leave. I get it why he did it. He wanted to get paid, which he wasn't going to get, which wasn't going to happen in Pittsburgh. But it does fill a big gap. Third line center is empty right now. Big player on the PK. He played two-way hockey. He was a smart player. It sucked to see him go. And we'll talk about, realistically, I think we are going to make a trade for a center. Right now, we have one of two players filling that spot. Either Zachary Aston Reese, who's a young kid, young kid, who's playing for Scranton right now. So maybe he'll come up. Then there's another guy, Greg McKegg, McKegg. Really, parents? You named your kid Greg McKegg? Like, I don't understand. It's like ridiculous. It's like if my parents would have named me Sherman. It's absurd. But anyway, he's a big kid. He's like 6 feet, 190. He's 25 years old. Let's see what he can do. But realistically, I would love to see a trade for Matt Duchene. He hates Colorado. He begrudgingly showed up to camp. There were talks in the trade deadline last year. I would love to see us get that deal done.
They're going to trade him for sure. They have to.
Yeah, they have to trade him. And I would love to see him on our third line. That really brings back our depth. When you look at
where's Hagelin? Is he playing?
Yeah, he's fully healthy. They say he's fully healthy. He hasn't really played all that much in the preseason, but he's supposed to start. Opening day. The lines right now are pretty similar. The first two, Getzel, Crosby, Sheary, Wilson, Malkin, Kessel. The third line, obviously, big open gap in center, but it'll be Hags and Hornquist on each side. And then the fourth line, Ryan Reeves will be there, Carter Rowney, and then, Rust, depending how he moves up and down. Our defense will be the same. Dumoulin, Letang, Cole, and Schultz. And then Mata, who third line, who would have saw that. And then Matt Hunwick, who we signed, 32-year-old, we signed him from Toronto. So,
which, two things, how's Letang doing?
He's fine. He's full contact. He was good to go full contact before training camp started. So
okay. Good. I like him. I appreciate his effort.
I like him too.
And how about the Hunwick signing is crazy because Hunwick was signed a few years ago by Toronto as basically their number 1 or 2 defenseman.
I know he's a little bit older now. He's 32. Last year with Toronto, he played 72 games and had a +8 rating. It's not bad.
It's great. And Toronto was a team that he helped them a lot.
They were competing. They were competitive, and not to mention, like if that's our third line defenseman, I'm good with that.
Absolutely. And your defense has always been a question. I think you're a little more solidified this year than you in the past couple of years.
Yeah,
Basically.
we had there were a handful of other guys who left on defense, but they were all like 40. So again, themes old. One last piece on free agents, then we'll talk about where we see the Metro kind of falling out. But today it was announced that Yager signed with Calgary for a 1-year deal. I really thought we had some sort of homecoming reunion with Yager and the Penguins. It would have been hard fitting him in cap wise and just the lines. He's not super fast, so he doesn't really fit on the third line. Maybe he would have gone on the second line with Malkin, but it would have really been nice to see him come back home. Maybe I'm living in kind of a fantasy idealist world, but it would have been nice to see that last hurrah.
Even I would have liked that.
Yeah, and honestly, I thought it fit, but who knows? Moving on to the division, because I think that's really where it kind of gets interesting. So last year, if everyone remembers, Washington was in first with 118 points. Pittsburgh was in second with 111. Columbus was third, 108. The Rangers were fourth with 102. And then you've got everyone else, Islanders, Flyers, Hurricanes, and Devils. I think right off the bat, and Ben, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there is no way that Washington is as good as they were last year.
They've had a huge amount of turnover. I think they've specifically changed their team a lot. They're not as good as they were last year. I still think they're a playoff team.
So I would agree. So I still think Washington's a playoff team. I don't think that they win the division this year. I think that they probably fall back a little bit. Pittsburgh, I'm going to be super biased. I think they either win the division or come in second. They're definitely a playoff team this year. Columbus, I think, is also a playoff team this year. What are your thoughts?
That's the team that I think could make the biggest jump. As much as they made a jump from the year before to last year,
yep.
I think this year they could contend for the winning the division. I think they're that good. I think their players are that good, and I think they have enough. This the new hockey, speed and youth and talent that could win a division this year.
I totally agree with you.
By the way, it doesn't mean I trust Bobrovsky in a playoff series.
No, I don't. I mean, after watching him play against the Penguins, I don't trust him to walk my kid across the street.
But I think they could win a regular. I think they could definitely contend for the top, either the top spot or the top two in the Metro.
I totally agree with you.
But now, I think the wild cards. I think we agree. Pittsburgh, Columbus, and the Capitals are most probably 1, 2, 3 in some sense.
Honestly, I could see the Caps falling to a wild card. That's how bad I think they're going to be this year.
Wow, they still have Holtby and Ovechkin. They still have a bunch of players that are good. I could see that.
They have Holtby, who I trust, but their defense got rocked, and I think their offense isn't going to be as good. That's just me.
Do you think the Rangers are a playoff team?
I think the Rangers are going to finish ahead of the Caps.
Oh, I would love that. I say the Rangers are the first wild card in the East.
You think the Caps are going to be the second wild card?
Yeah, if you go to the Atlantic, by the way.
Oh, forget about the Atlantic. Yeah, I keep going. Yeah, go for it.
Montreal, Tampa, to me, are guarantees.
Agreed.
Guarantees. I really think Ottawa is making it again, but I think Toronto for sure is there.
So here's my thought on the Atlantic. I think that the Atlantic after Montreal and Tampa, there is such a huge drop off. I think they may only get 2 teams in this year.
Dude, they have the number 1 player in the league, Austin Matthews.
Oh well, Austin Matthews. Well, in that case, I actually think I would agree with you. I think Toronto's the third, and that's it. I think Ottawa doesn't make it. I think Craig Anderson has a really bad year this year. He's not going to be able to carry the load 2 years in a row. I thought he got lucky last year. They're not a good team.
You think they're going to be 2 wild cards from one division?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think we're going to get So I think it's going to be Montreal, Tampa Bay, and Toronto in some order. I don't know what order. And then from the Metropolitan, we're going to get the top 3. It's so tough. The top 3, I think, are going to be Pittsburgh. Oh, God.
There's a lot more parity that I think is upcoming in the Metro this year than there was last year.
You know what? I think we're getting. I think parity. Really, you think that like I think Carolina is going to be just god awful, and so is Philadelphia. But I think the Devils are going to be much better, and I think the Islanders are going to be good too.
Then the Islanders are actually going to, because the Islanders weren't supposed to be as bad as they were last year. I think they have goalie issues. I think they don't have a number 1.
They still had 94 points. Like, we're making it seem like they were atrocious.
True, 1,000%. But that's very true. And they were. I think last day of the season they were still in it, right? Theoretically.
Yeah.
Mathematically, at least. I think that you have a Metro, which is. I'm looking over the divisions right now. The Metro may be again the toughest division in hockey.
Yeah, I mean it is. It's not even a question. And I don't want to hear all these Chicago Blackhawk fans saying, no, it's not. But anyway, I think it'll be Pittsburgh, Columbus, and the Rangers as the top three. I think the Caps get in as a wild card. And then I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think the Islanders get that last wild card. And I think they're better than Boston. Like, they're better than Florida, Detroit, Buffalo. And they're better than Ottawa. They are. That's how I see it. Maybe my order is wrong, but I think those 5 teams, and again, it's not really saying much because those are the top 5 teams this past year. I just don't think Philly, Carolina, or the Devils have really done enough to make that next step, even though the Devils kind of, they're not going to be the worst team in the division. I think Carolina will definitely be, and then, it really breaks my heart to see Philly coming in 7th. But
let's talk about that. Let's end on this, if you agree. Let's end on this. I think what's the biggest wild card issue for the Rangers and for the Penguins? What's the thing that's going to put them over the top or sink them?
Well, I can tell you right off the bat, the Penguins is going to be depth. We don't have that same depth that we did anymore. We don't have necessarily the scoring from the 3 lines and even the 4th line that we used to have. Our power play is going to be deadly. Our first 2 lines are what they are, 6 amazing forwards. We don't have that same depth without that extra forward, or without that extra center. To the extent that we do find another center, then that's a whole different game. I'd say the one B to the biggest things is health, and that goes for all teams. But we obviously know that Letang has had obviously issues. Crosby has had issues with health. Even Malkin gets banged up ever so often. So to the extent that everyone can stay healthy and Murray doesn't have a freak accident, I think health is the second biggest. But again, that's not really a Penguin specific. That's really more of every team has to stay healthy. The Rangers, I think their biggest obstacle right now is going to be scoring. I really don't see them having that center depth. I didn't think they had center depth last year, and they lost 2 of their centers. So I think they run into that issue. I think their defense should be a little bit better, which will help an aging Lundqvist, who every year gets a slightly more human. But I think that the biggest issue from the Rangers is going to be where's the scoring going to come from? Who's going to score 30 goals on that team? You probably could pencil in Nash. But who else is going to score 30 goals? Maybe Shattenkirk will. But again, I don't know where the scoring's coming from. So that's where I see the 2. What about you? What do you think?
So I think with the Penguins, I agree with you. Health is obviously an issue. I think your depth has been tested more this year than it has in the past. Definitely last year, I think your team was one of the deepest teams, which is one of the reasons, if not the reason, you won. And that includes goalie, by the way. You had two goalies that could win.
2 number 1s ish.
And your depth has been challenged. I think in this league, I think now you have to have at least 3.5 lines that you can roll on the ice. So I do think your depth on your team is more of a question mark than it has been in your past. I hate saying this, 2 cup-winning seasons. Mm-hmm. I think for the Rangers, I do think it's depth. I do think it's center. But I'll tell you what I really think the thing will determine their season the biggest is if their backup goalie can play the way that Ronta's played the past 2 years. So Hank, as you said, is older. He's 36. I think he's turning 36 this year. He's on if not the downside of the career, he's already on the downside. He's either turning it or he's on it.
Do you think he's going to play more than 50 games this year?
I think his number should be somewhere between 55 and 58 this year. If he's playing 62, I think we got a problem. Not a problem. That's the wrong word.
No, it just means that your backup goalie, you're not as confident as you thought you were.
And then come the playoffs, he's going to be more tired than I want him to be. Right. I think I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Pavelik. I'm not sure to pronounce it.
Pavelik.
Yeah, Pavelik. If he's the way Ronta's played the past 2 years, which is enough to earn him a number 1 spot this year, I think the Rangers will be in a good position. Their team depth is enough to get them to the playoffs.
Well, time will only see. Again, can't wait. Puck drop Wednesday night. Season can't come
too long.
Season can't come fast enough. Again, we miss you guys. You want to comment on anything, either leave a comment on YouTube, Facebook, abchockeyshow@gmail.com. Very excited to be back, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.
Take care.